Hi, my name's David, and I've been asked to explore with you the godly principle of generosity. Now, I was brought up by my grandparents, and my grandmother had a very clear description of life. It was always one or the other, good or bad, right or wrong. That was her approach to everything, and it was very defined. And I remember her speaking to me about the behavior of the heart of an individual, and her saying, well, there are two kinds of people, David, that make up this world. There are kind-hearted people and mean-spirited people. And you, young man, you need to learn to be kind-hearted in everything that you do. So that was a kind of grounding for me in the subject of generosity. But our upbringing doesn't have to define who we are. Some of us have not had such clarity in our life. But when you became a Christian, when you became born again, things change for you. If you don't know what born again means, read chapter 3 of John's Gospel, and it'll explain it in there. Or have a chat with whoever you're working with and let them talk to you about being born again. But when you're born again, you become a child of God. In the first letter of John, 1 John, chapter 3 and verse 2, it says, you're now a child of God. And that changes things, because you can begin to say, I think I'm going to copy my Father in heaven and his lifestyle rather than anything else. So you can begin to learn his ways of thinking. Now, this subject of generosity, I'm going to give you just a quick example from the Old Testament of generosity. There was a little girl that was a Jewish girl living at home, and an army came, captured the city. Her family were taken captive. She was taken captive. She was about, I don't know, we don't know, 10 or 11, that sort of age. She was taken away to a different country and to work with, as a servant, the mistress, the wife of the captain of the army that captured her. So she was working as a slave, as a little girl, with her mistress. Now, she could be forgiven for being sullen and miserable and bad-tempered. But when she learned that her master, the captain, had leprosy, she wasn't sullen, she wasn't rude, she didn't ignore the situation. She said in passing to her mistress, it's a shame master wasn't in Samaria, because if he was, the prophet there would heal him of his leprosy. She gave him a generous gift. Read the story, it's in 2 Kings chapter 5, and he goes and he's healed because of the generosity of this little girl. There was another custom both in the Old Testament times and the New Testament times, that if you went into a town as a visitor and you didn't have anywhere to stay, you'd sit in the square, the central area of the town, and someone would come and say, do you have nowhere to stay? Come back to my house. Come out of this rain. I don't know if you can hear the rain. Come out of this rain and I'll give you something to eat. And so you get to stay in someone's house. No charge. Generosity. It's the principle of God. You actually see that in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus advises his disciples. More examples from the New Testament. In the first epistle of John, also chapter 1, John says, if you confess your sin, we all do stuff wrong. If you confess your sin, God is faithful and just to forgive us our sin and cleanse us from everything. Now that is generous. We just say sorry and he makes it better. Peter said to the servant, he was walking, not to the man who couldn't walk, he was going to the temple, I don't have any money to give you, but what I do have, I'll share with you. And then he prayed for him. Actually, his prayer was a declaration of healing, and the man was healed. Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 said, love those who are unkind to you. Love your enemies. Consider people generously. This can be your time, your attention, your smiles, your money. Jesus said, you are the light of the world. Shine the light of the Father God and his style into this world. And that style, that lifestyle, that way of living is generosity. So the encouragement is to be generous in all that you do. Bless you. Have a good day.